Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. No doubt continues now. There's so much going on in the news, it's just hard to handle here. Last hour we had on Dr. Melanie Kreitz. She's a well-known, board-certified physician. She's an expert when it comes to the pelvis. Yeah, and gender reassignment surgeries. And she says this is disaster. We got to reject it at all costs. She's made a bold stand, and we commend her for her stand. She talked about the documentary, What is a Doctor? Shocking documentary exposes the harsh reality of medical mutilation in the name of, quote, gender-affirming care. It's disaster. AFLDS.org to learn more about that incredible documentary. And if you want to learn more about Dr. Melanie Kreitz, 360phi.com. Or if you want to learn about the evidence that is continuing to just gather, I don't know what you want to call it. There's just a plethora of evidence, and it's all available at stoptheharmdatabase.com. That's stoptheharmdatabase.com. Check that out because it's great stuff. All right, for the new hour, this is very interesting. President Trump put together in the big, beautiful bill what he calls a baby account program. And I guess there's a new savings account you can do for babies. And a new Treasury analysis of Trump's program is now showing that Trump's $1,000 baby account program, I guess they say that if you put that $1,000 in there, it can grow to as much as $1.9 million. By age 28, they say if maximized and left untouched, giving children a power financial head start under the One Big Beautiful Bill. Sounds really cool, folks. Sounds really awesome. Hey, you just, let the government start this thing with $1,000 or whatever. You get a tax credit or whatever, and you put it in there, and then it just grows to 1.9 million. I hope that it's true, but I don't believe that it's true. And so I appreciate the Treasury coming out with this, but a lot of this is speculation. Okay? $1,000 turns into 1.9 million. If that's true, then, do you even really need Social Security? If you have 1.9 billion or 1.9 million by the time you're 28 years old, 38, 48, 58, you still got like 35 years to retirement or something crazy. Do you even need Social Security at all? If this is really true? Do you even need, okay, so we really got to go down those roads. And the problem that I have is whenever government puts together projections, it turns out to be bogus. It turns out to be just fake news or whatever you want to say. It rarely turns out the way they say. So, it'll be interesting for someone to put this prediction in a time capsule, this new Treasury analysis saying, hey, this $1,000 baby account program by the age of 28 can grow to be $1.9 million. We'll see how well that turns out. All we got to do is, have babies born in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and then wait 28, 29, 30 years and see if there's anybody that have. But they give these qualifiers in here in this headline that I find quite interesting as well. Okay. They say 1.9 million by age 28 if, and that's the big if here going on, people. Ready? Maximized, whatever that means. Very few people will probably know how to, quote, maximize it, or will it just be maximized for you? Don't know. And left untouched. That's a big, big thing, too. Giving children a powerful financial head start. Anyway, I don't mean to be negative about it. I'm just telling you, whenever the government starts something like this, I find that if you leave it to the private sector, you'd be way better. And I also wonder that in 28 years, if you take $1,000 and it really reaches 1.9 million, is that because it's invested in the stock market? What's the underlying analysis to this? And that they don't really go into a lot of. They just talk about the hero, idea of the big, beautiful bill, of the new Treasury analysis of what Trump's done. Anyway, I just find that interesting, right? All right, this next article is Washington Times. Small businesses are thriving under Donald Trump, they say. Headline says small business owners report strong growth, steady hiring, rising earnings, and renewed optimism thanks to a resilient economy, pro-business tax reform, and sweeping deregulation under the Trump administration. Now, I agree with that. I believe there's something to that. I believe that things are better under Trump. But I also see there's a lot of concern on the horizon, folks, because, you know, the tariffs are so all over the map right now to where there's a lot of question. And government is supposed to provide stability and a modicum of certainty. And that with the tariffs, we're just not seeing that. I mean, we don't even know where our businesses stand half the time. We set up pricing and then we think we're fine. And then before you know it, there's a tariff or a this or a that. And before you know it, we don't even have the profit margins we thought we did. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. Trump's efforts are to create more of a level playing field, and I applaud him for that. I really do. But when we say small business owners report strong growth, I'm sure there's some truth to that for right now. Steady hiring. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that we really know the real numbers. Trump just fired somebody over these numbers. He may have been right. They may have been a clown show and delivering the wrong information and setting the market with propaganda. That ought to require an investigation in and of itself. Rising earnings. I mean, I hope that's true. I know a lot of companies are struggling, though, with the tariffs because they feel like, hey, the rising earnings are being stolen from them via the tariffs. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm for tariffs. I'm absolutely for tariffs, but I'm for Congress being responsible for them, not the president. Congress has been derelict in their duty and let the president do whatever he wants here. The courts tried to rein him in, and they were, for the most part, unsuccessful. But Congress could rein in the president in a heartbeat, which is what they ought to be doing. And what they really should be doing is not reining in the president as if the president's a problem. They need to basically codify what the president's doing, bring a sense of strength and stability and accountability to the table for it. Let the president take the lead. You know, he's the chief negotiator. He's the art of the deal guy. That's fantastic. He's the chief executive. But at the end of the day, they need to kind of settle things down and codify what Trump's talking about. When they say there's renewed optimism thanks to a resilient economy, I think the economy's doing decent, but I don't think it's doing awesome. And I'll explain why in a minute here. A resilient economy is way better than under Biden. That's a no doubt. But is it as resilient as I would hope it to be? Not quite. They say pro-business tax reforms. I think there's some stuff there that's good, not near enough. And then they say sweeping deregulation under the Trump administration. And I agree with that. I think there is truly, I'm not sure what word to use for it. A deregulation effort happening under President Trump, and I love to see it. But the sad part about this is I see eventually what we need is Congress to step up to the table, folks, and deliver on what Trump has been working on. See, I believe that the president's doing a great job in a lot of ways. But without Congress doubling down and backing his play, I see it being temporary at best. I really don't see a long-term sea change in the way government views business, and especially small business. And so I really, really would like to see Congress back what Trump's been doing. Okay, but because at the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where the rubber meets the road, is when Congress codifies the actions of the president into law. And what the Congress could do if they really backed the president, and this is in defense of President Donald J. Trump, ladies and gentlemen, if Congress would back the president and a lot of what he's doing, it would instantly become constitutional. It would instantly become codified into law. It would instantly rein in rogue agencies, bad actors, deep state criminals, and so on. And so Congress, Mike Johnson, Republicans, Democrats, set aside partisan politics. Set aside all that. And let's back President Trump and his incredible initiatives. A lot of them are really, really good. They just need to be codified by Congress so they're constitutional. And if the president and the Congress were on the same page, the courts would be able to fulfill their less influential role, less political role, and they could interpret the law. Hang tight. I'm Sam Bushman.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
If Planned Parenthood were what they publicly declare themselves to be, they would welcome transparency. We all know why they hide, because we know what they hide. We can confirm federal judges who follow the Constitution rather than reverse engineer their preferred policy outcomes. The truth about abortion is spreading because of advances in medical imaging, because of brave journalists, tireless activists, compassionate doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. The rising generation of young Americans is the most pro-life in decades because they know too. And one day soon, we will reaffirm our nation's principles in their dignified fullness and avow once again that all men are created equal. All are entitled to life.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman on your radio. Hard-hitting news always on the Roundtable. I'm glad small businesses are doing well. I'm glad a new Treasury analysis says that the children are going to be doing great. I appreciate some of these positive headlines. We need them, folks. I just hope many of them are true. I also hope this one comes to fruition, ladies and gentlemen. The headline says federal authorities are investigating former special counsel Jack Smith for possible Hatch Act violations, which prohibits federal employees from engaging in certain political activities. The investigation, they say, conducted by the Hatch Act unit at the Office of Special Counsel, they call this thing OSC, Office of Special Counsel, right? For the United States DOJ, I guess, followed allegations that Smith's legal actions during his, quote, investigation into Donald Trump were politically motivated. Now, if that's true, we need accountability here, folks. And whether this Jack Smith thing is, politically motivated, whether the issue with, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama putting together this attack on Trump via Russiagate, etc. See, these are all different aspects of the same discussion, which is, did criminals, under the guise of being government agents, literally manipulate things for political motivations, to tamper with the elections, to unfairly, dishonestly, immorally attack Donald Trump, right? Whether they violate the Hatch Act in this case, where Jack Smith kind of went out of control, or whether we're talking about Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and some of their actions. This needs to be really adjudicated and really dealt with in a transparent way. And what I find right now is these issues, whether it be Jack Smith, whether it be Barack Obama, whether it be Tulsi Gabbard speaking out, every one of these topics seems to be, in my opinion, taking the wind out of the sails of the Jeffrey Epstein discussion. Is it Epstein, whatever. Because, at first it was the big topic. Now I don't even hear a lot about Jeffrey. Is it going to go away? Well, hopefully it doesn't go away. Hopefully we get accountability. These claims that I'm talking about right now about Jack Smith were highlighted by Senator Tom Cotton, who argued that Smith's actions were aimed to negatively impact Trump's election prospects. Now think about that. If that's true, that is election tampering. All right. If you literally have Jack Smith, this prosecutor, for political purposes, pull this agenda, and his actions were negatively impacting Trump's election prospects, it's election tampering, folks. Plain and simple. He used his office in government to tamper with elections. Cotton accused Smith of rushing trials and making, quote, unusual legal requests to influence the 2024 election. I don't see how you get out of this. The investigations into Trump regarding classified documents and the, quote, January 6th events were eventually dropped. Smith, by the way, no longer holds a federal position at all. So, the question is, what's going to happen here? I don't know. But when you tell me that it's going to go to a special counsel, I know that's where it's supposed to go. But I also know that I'm so jaded, that's where I don't have any trust. So it's going to go into a special counsel. They're going to spend a ton of our taxpayers' dollars on it. They're going to get all excited, and they're going to leak little blips about how horrible it's going to be. Oh, my gosh, so-and-so did this, or oh, my gosh, that. Oh, my gosh, we've discovered this, and oh, my gosh. And then it's going to bring all this stuff forward in one big release from the special counsel. And they'll say, by golly, things were horribly egregious. They were awful. But there's really no harm, no foul here. Jack Smith kind of acted unethically, but by golly, he's not a criminal. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because they're setting the stage right now for this. If you look up Jack Smith, okay, on the internet, they make a painstaking, I'm trying to think of the word, a painstaking effort to say this is not criminal. Right? They say he's under the office or under the investigation of the special counsel, but it's not criminal right now. Okay? So it's not really a criminal investigation, they're saying. Yeah? They call it a probe into Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. Yeah. But it's not criminal now. Okay? Jack Smith resigns to the Justice Department back in the day. Right? Now, I look at this thing and I go, we're not going to say it's criminal yet. Well, what is it then if it's not criminal? And if we use the term not criminal, what are we actually investigating? That he was a bad actor? Okay, everybody agrees with that. That he kind of fudged the truth? Everybody agrees with that. Hatch Act violations? Yeah, but what if they're violations that just don't rise to the bar of putting him in jail or doing anything? So he's going to get what? Lose his Maserati? Lose his Lamborghini? Lose his house on the hill? See, they attacked Julie Rudiani like this or whatever. At the end of the day, these people live better when they get convicted under bankruptcy in prison than most of us live in our whole lifetimes. Jeffrey Epstein got kid gloves when it came to his prison sentences. You wonder about Ghislaine Maxwell. Is she like experiencing alligator Alcatraz kind of stuff? You think it's like that? Or do you think she's like in kind of a posh situation? I doubt it's too hard on Ghislaine. Just saying. But when you talk about the Hatch Act, what are the consequences for some of that stuff? And what happens when we just kind of ignore it? For example, let me just give you the example to make my point. Tom Cotton, a senator, accused Smith of rushing trials and making unusual legal requests. Well, rushing trials isn't criminal. It might be bad faith. It might be, the court's mad at you for doing it. Don't do that. Don't get out of line again. Kind of stuff. But you can't tell me that rushing trials would be like a hardcore criminal offense that's going to put you in jail. They say, and making unusual legal requests to influence the 2024 election. So to make these unusual requests, they could just say, well, hey, Jack felt like they were necessary. Trump's a very unusual person, very unusual situation, high profile character. Hey, some of these unusual requests, I'm going to say that are justified, right? And then is the kicker. Legal requests, and then to influence the 2024 election. See, that's nothing more than speculation by Tom Cotton. And if he proves it, then there's election fraud. But I don't think he'll be able to prove it. I think what's going to happen is they're going to come out of this investigation and say, hey, Smith was a bad guy. We're going to put plenty of egg on Smith's face, baby. Because, man, this guy, wow. But in the end of the day, I don't think there'll be serious repercussions. Now, I know Ron Paul's trying to put Anthony Fauci behind bars, and I commend him for that. I really do. Because I think Fauci needs to be behind bars. But, ladies and gentlemen, I can't really, in good faith, believe that Fauci's going to be behind bars. Okay? And I get this. We're going to put Fauci behind bars from Rand Paul. And I support it. But I support the trial. In other words, the due process for Fauci. And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to due process for you and me, there's no ability to get our side of the story on the table, right? But it seems like when we talk about these bigwigs, high-level attorneys, people that are above the law, people that are in the Democratic Party, it just seems like they don't really have accountability. They're really above the law. And so I don't think that Fauci will go to jail either. I don't think that Smith will go to jail. I don't think Barack Obama will go to jail. I don't think Hillary Clinton will go to jail. And I appreciate that they would and should. But see, I don't think we're going to have transparent accountability. I don't think we're going to have this accountability that we want. And the reason I don't is because I still think we have a 2-tier justice system in America. And until that stops, I just don't believe there's going to be accountability. Right? Anyway, it's kind of a scary situation. Because I don't believe we're going to have accountability here at all. I know there's a lot of talk, but the way they've moved from the Epstein case to now the Jack Smith case, to the Barack Obama and the Bill Clinton and the Hillary Clinton case, and the James Comey and the Clapper and all these people case, they're making the target so broad that nothing will come out of it all. It'll be a whole lot of hoopla. Well, the country song says, a lot less talk and a lot more action. That's what I want to see. I'm Sam Bushman. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live, nationally syndicated radio talk show promoting God, family, and country on your radio.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The Titan submersible disaster was preventable. That's the conclusion reached by a Coast Guard investigation of the 2023 disaster and left 5 people dead. The deep-sea sub imploded while on its way to the wreckage of the Titanic. Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows says Democrats who fled the state to block a vote on redrawn congressional maps face a choice. They can return to work or risk arrest.
Whether it's tomorrow or next week, the House will complete its required duties. I have signed the civil arrest warrants. We will work with DPS to locate members.
The revised maps designed to reflect the will of the voters, but Democrats cry racism, accusing Republicans of playing politics. Attorney General Bondi has ordered the Department of Justice to move forward with a probe into the Trump-Russia investigation. Follows a release of documents that discredit the inquiry that found Moscow interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election in favor of Mr. Trump.
Bondi has directed a prosecutor to present evidence to a grand jury after referrals from the Trump administration's top intelligence official. It's not clear which former officials might be the target of any grand jury activity, where the grand jury that might ultimately hear evidence will be located, or which prosecutors, whether career employees or political appointees, might be involved in pursuing the investigation.
And that's correspondent Ken Lorman reporting. Watching Wall Street this morning, stocks which had started off the day higher have now turned negative, and the Dow is down about 194 points for a loss of roughly 0.5%. The Nasdaq off 126 and the S&P down 36 points. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Hi, Mike Gallagher here. As the summer heats up, so do the bills. If you're like a lot of folks, you're not selling your home anytime soon, but that equity you've built, just sitting there. That's why I trust Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans. Love this place. It's in their name, their DNA. They're the team I've used personally, and they treat every client like family. Fellowship Home Loans. They know how to help you tap into your home's value wisely, whether that's a HELOC or a cash-out refi. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. Maybe it's time to finally knock out that renovation, pay off some debt, or just add a little cushion to your retirement account. With rates still reasonable and inflation squeezing all of us, your home might be the smartest financial tool you've got right now. So if you're staying put this summer, make your home work for you. Visit my friends at Fellowship Home Loans, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
As a parent, is receiving a faith-based, character-focused education for your children difficult to find? Do you believe that godly principles should be a central component in your child's education? Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character. For over 40 years, American Heritage School has been educating both hearts and minds, bringing out academic excellence. This is the school where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. With American Heritage School's advanced distance education program, distance is no longer an issue. With an accredited LDS-oriented curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, your children can attend from anywhere in the world. American Heritage School will prepare your child for more than a job. It will prepare them for life. To learn more, visit American-Heritage.org. That's American-Heritage.org.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman on your radio. Breaking down news the networks refuse to use, talking about Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul said that Dr. Anthony Fauci should go to prison over his dishonesty in handling the COVID-19 pandemic and lying to Congress. This article is in thehill.com. Fauci is a serious criminal, believes Rand Paul. I agree with Rand Paul, by the way. Senator Paul believes the virus came from a lab in China. And that's where we were told by Anthony Fauci that it wasn't true. How dare anybody speculate that it was true? And then it turned out that it was absolutely true. And he accused Anthony Fauci of directly contributing to the deaths of they say somewhere between 10 and 20 million people with his decision to, quote, fund dangerous research, in other words, gain-of-function research, where you allow viruses to combine or to be combined. And that's where the trouble is. And so there's a big push for that. Well, my whole point is I don't have any confidence. I don't have any confidence that we're going to get Anthony Fauci in jail. Why? Because although I think Rand Paul is absolutely spot on correct on this thing, I don't see or I don't believe that there's the mechanism in place to try and Anthony Fauci. The judges are all against it. Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will advance it except for Rand Paul in the Senate. Nobody in the House seems to be overly worried about it. Everybody wants to just let Anthony Fauci ride into the sunset with his gargantua pension. I mean, this guy was paid more than anybody else in government for quite some time. And so, so Anthony Fauci is above the law. Even in the Hill article that I just read or just highlighted for you, hey, they say it's a long shot idea by, Rand Paul to have accountability here. And that's the problem that we're facing in America over and over and over. They make allegations. They bring you to the brink of frustration. They highlight how horrible it is. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard really telling you, look, these guys committed treason. Now, I'm not using the word treason, but I'm telling you that others are. So, hey, Barack Obama, guilty of treason, undermining the next president of the United States. Fine. Where's the arresting of him for these allegations? Where's the proof for these allegations? Where in the due process of law are we going to show that, hey, these guys are criminals, and then toss them in the clink and throw away the key? I mean, do you really believe that Anthony Fauci is going to be in Alcatraz? Alligator Alcatraz? Do you believe that Anthony Fauci is going to even be we can't even strip his pension away from him, people, and save the taxpayers millions of dollars. Sometimes these people get protection from the Secret Service, costing us millions. We can't even get that kind of stuff stopped on some of these people, right? And so I appreciate these claims being highlighted by Senator Tom Cotton, who argue that Smith's actions, and you say, wait, why are you back to Smith? Aren't you talking about Fauci? And no, I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about investigation after investigation. They're giving us more investigations. We're investigating Smith. We're looking at Fauci. We're looking at Barack. We're looking at Hillary. We're looking at Comey. We're looking at all these people. But I don't see anybody going to jail. Okay? If Smith really rushed trials, is that a criminal offense? If Anthony Fauci recommended gain-of-function research, which was well accepted in the scientific community, and the Congress approved the dollars, how are you going to hold Fauci completely responsible? Well, Fauci lied to Congress. And then the question becomes, well, in the emergency situation, does he have the right to lie to Congress? We know that Congress, the House and the Senate, can literally lie in Congress, knowing full well it's a lie, and you can't touch them. Think about that. And you can't touch them. That alone So the question becomes, hey, what truth telling do people have to do, right? That's the problem. I don't even know where to go with this because it's so egregious. I mean, if Congress can lie to you in Congress, you can't trust anything said on the floor, right? That's the problem. And so I believe Paul does believe the virus came from a lab in China. I personally go further than even Rand Paul and say I believe that it was created in a lab by the United States in bed with the communists. And I believe that they all released it on the world as a trial run because their goal is population control. Their goal is to depopulate the world. Under the Bill Gates idea, they believe that the world's much more controllable if there was a lot less people on the planet. They really have this agenda in mind. And so I personally believe they created the virus and released it intentionally. And you say, wow, Sam, that's going out on a limb. That's going so far without proof. I disagree with you. And the reason that I disagree is because any doctor that tried to bring true health care to people was absolutely maligned, ridiculed, shut down, threatened, abused, licenses yanked, ability to practice yanked. Their whole career, their whole reputation was ruined. Go ask Dr. Corey Pierre if you don't believe me. Okay? Why would you destroy all these doctors that are trying to provide true health care? Why would you be against ivermectin, even if you say it may not help everybody? We don't have evidence of it. We don't have the scientific studies to prove that it works. Why not accept that it possibly can work? We accepted all kinds of other medications, remdesivir and everything else, on this idea that it would solve these problems, and it didn't. It actually caused more death. But why not give some of these doctors the flexibility that they normally, day to day have, which is we're going to take a medication, we're going to use it for something that's not its primary use, its off-use recommendations or whatever it's called, and doctors did that routinely. Well, with COVID, they weren't allowed to do that. No. Any nurse that blew the whistle saying, hey, we're doing the wrong things to people, they were doing okay, and then I gave them this or we did this, and they started to go downhill. Every practice, medically speaking, was either violated or turned on its head. Anybody who stood up for what was right got crushed, got smashed. Anybody who didn't want to take the vaccines, which are not even vaccines, they're mRNA, I don't know what you want to call them, experiments at this point, but they're not vaccines. Anyway, anybody who spoke out against those was considered a nut. Even the guy that came up with a lot of these, quote, vaccines. Robert Malone spoke up and said, hey, wait a minute, this is going to... Then they decided that his credibility was shot. He was going down. He was the enemy. He was the bad guy. And I just go, wow. Then we hear, anybody who says that it comes from a lab is a nutcase. Then we find out, it's actually true. Okay, everything. And so if we really made a mistake and somehow it was leaked, whether it was from a lab or from a, meat market or whatever, if it was accidentally leaked, why would there be this vigorous campaign against anybody who tried to provide solutions? I mean, if you gave people oxygen and ivermectin quickly when they got the COVID, you know what? The results are undeniable. How good. Okay, but they fought against it tooth and nail. They put things in place to just force everyone to do things that they knew full well didn't have any scientific evidence to it. For example, the 6-foot rule. Got to be 6 feet apart, whatever. Hey, Fauci admitted there's no science behind that at all. But they insisted on it. And everybody who spoke out and said, hey, this isn't scientific, this is bogus, they said, how dare you? How dare you question the science? We're following the science. And so my reasoning to say that this was intentionally released and done on the people, which sounds just crazy, but when you consider how hostile they were to anybody that wanted to provide quality health care, anybody that went against the government global narrative on this thing was considered absolutely destroyed. How dare you? How can millions of dollars flowed to the states, taking a lot of states that were close to bankruptcy and melting down and making them, at least temporarily, financially soluble again. But when we spent all that money and sent checks to the people, sent money to the states, just sent money, we ballooned the debt of the United States just beyond imagination. It's over $37 trillion and growing at an alarming rate. You look at all that and you go, whoa, people, what is happening? And so I believe it was intentional. And I believe that evidence shows it's intentional. Anybody who disagreed with the narrative was shut down. Anybody who wanted to provide, out of the box thinking to provide true care, no matter what their credentials were, destroy their character and their credibility. So if it wasn't intentional, why would you do all that? Why wouldn't you be so grateful for somebody coming up with a new possible treatment, or somebody coming up with a possible solution for this or protection for that? Or why would you promote the use of masks without any real scientific evidence that it's valuable or that it works at all? Why would you promote the 6 feet apart idea if you didn't have any scientific evidence, if it wasn't scientific? All the while, you're claiming anybody who disagrees with you is a nutcase and you're following the science. In fact, Anthony Fauci basically said he was the science. Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable live.
Scott Bradley here. Most Americans are painfully aware that the nation is on the wrong track and in dire straits. Unfortunately, most political pundits only nibble around the edges when they claim to address the issues. Even worse, many of the so-called solutions are simply rewarmed servings of what got us into the mess we currently face. And the politicians think we're so gullible and naive that we'll buy their lies that they have reformed and now understand where they led us astray. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that they simply wish to continue to hold power. The solution to America's challenges is found in returning to the timeless principles found in the United States Constitution. My book and lecture series will reawaken in Americans an understanding and love of the principles which made this nation the freest, most prosperous, happiest, and most respected nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com and order my book and lectures to begin the restoration of this great nation.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
All right, back with you live. You say, Sam, why are you going off on a big tear on COVID and stuff? And because Anthony Fauci, in my humble opinion, is a criminal. And I agree with Senator Rand Paul, who said Anthony Fauci should go to prison over his dishonesty in handling the COVID-19 fiasco, and he lied to Congress. Senator Paul believes the virus came from China in a lab, and he says, hey, Fauci is responsible for the deaths of between 10 and 20 million people. Think about that number, ladies and gentlemen. The amount of people that got sick from COVID and died from COVID and everything else, we didn't see the numbers were near that high. But they say it contributed to the deaths. And again, that's a very hard thing to prove. So I don't disagree with Senator Paul's supposition on this. Well, I bring this up because we think that this is all over and COVID's, years ago and behind us, right? I say it's still plaguing us today. The Marine Corps is currently discharging Christian service members for not complying with vaccine mandates despite previously won exemptions for religious reasons. So in other words, you get an exemption for religious reason and now they're turning on you. You say, where's this coming from, Sam? The answer is Liberty Counsel. Our buddy Matt Staver over there doing a great job. Liberty Counsel is now taking legal action to challenge these dismissals and to restore rights and careers, including back pay for affected military members. I think that's phenomenal work, right? What do I mean by phenomenal work? I'm talking about the work by Matthew Staver and company. They are urging the Secretary of Defense and other military leaders to rectify these injustices by removing what they call these medical evaluations, or I'm sorry, negative evaluations, and reinstating denied promotions. Additionally, Liberty Counsel announced involvement in Supreme Court cases concerning religious freedom. Anyway, they go on and talk about a Kentucky church and a former clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses for religious reasons. So that's the Kim Davis deal, right? And anyway, shame on the Marine Corps. Absolutely good for Liberty Counsel. I really appreciate Liberty Counsel taking on a lot of these religious cases as well. I think they're critical, right? Supreme Court cases concerning religious freedom. We need more of that, right? In my opinion. They're calling for public donations to support these legal battles, and I guess they got a matching challenge for people who make contributions. I think that's great news. Anyway, good for Matt Staver, and but these issues about COVID just aren't done. And I appreciate under Trump it hasn't been a big focus, but how long will it be until you get some person in office that decides they want to bring back masks and bring back shutdowns and bring back this and that? They talked about this big X disease or whatever they want to call it, which will be, X just is like fill in the blank, right? When you do your math, X gets filled in with whatever the value is. X gets filled in with whatever disease we're talking about here, right? And how long is it going to be until they find some disease or some situation or some whatever where they go, hey, we got to lock down people again, got to do masks, got to have vaccine passports, got to have, and da-da-da. I don't think that's that far away. Just because it's not focused on now, don't let it go away from your memory. And I appreciate Rand Paul continuing to drive this thing home. All right, final story of the hour. Guy's name is Klaus Schwab. He's the founder of the World Economic Forum. In my opinion, a very dangerous global group. He now faces allegations of abusing or misusing WEF funds, not to mention inappropriate conduct towards female colleagues. The Wall Street Journal with this piece. The investigation, they say, revealed over $1.1 million in questionable expenses, including unauthorized purchases like hotels, massages, first-class plane tickets for his wife during trips where they claim there was no business purpose, etc. Additionally, the probe criticized Schwab for converting the WEF into his personal piggy bank, so to speak. Now, of course, he has denied these allegations and filed a criminal complaint in Geneva against his accusers. Now, they say this, though, although this is interesting. Despite officially distancing himself from management by stepping down in May 2024, I didn't realize it's been that long. Wow. Schwab hopes that the WEF continues its mission as a, quote, global bridge builder. Wow. I don't know. What's going to happen with that? I don't know. But there's an interesting quote that I think relates to a lot of this, folks, when it comes to Congress not being willing to prosecute, with the deep state, with people being above the law, all this kind of stuff, right? There's an interesting quote, and I put this quote into ChatGPT, and it said the quote you've shared, often attributed to Marcus Tullis Ciso, provides a profound reflection on the dangers of internal betrayal compared to external threats. But, the thought is that internal corruption and treachery can be far more dangerous. In other words, bad things from the inside can take people down where external can't. Even though this quote was attributed to him, it's probably not his quote, but it does go along with his general philosophies. A Roman statesman known for his speeches and extensive writing on philosophy, law, politics, did indeed wrestle with these things in his own life. So it's very plausible that it's a quote, but we don't have the quote factually, I don't know what you want to call it, attributed to him per se. But here's the quote. A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly. But the traitor moves amongst those within the gates freely, his sly whispers rustling through all the alleys or in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not a traitor. He speaks in accents familiar to his victims, and he wears their face, their arguments. He appeals to the baseness that lies deep within the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of a nation. So he steals the soul. He robs the soul of a nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. Anyway, Marcus Tullius Ciso, but we don't really know that it's his quote is the problem. But anyway, I bring that up because that's what we're experiencing in America right now. I appreciate Donald Trump and all the good that he's done. And I appreciate a lot of the members of Congress that are really trying to do good. I know Green's trying to do good. I know Tulsi Gabbard's trying to do good. I know Kash Patel's trying to do good. I believe there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. But I believe we have deep state enemy traitors amongst us, and they are doubling down to ensure that nothing Trump does lasts. We have got to turn this around by demanding Congress get involved, by demanding that Congress codifies what Trump's been working on, that we have accountability, that we change the game, impeach a few judges, whatever it takes to get this activist judge system to stop. Have Congress demand their authority and power back. Have the president do the same. Reduce the courts to their proper role. They're one of the three branches and usually considered the weakest or the least political branch. With political capital comes power, sadly. But the goal is to reduce these courts, and the problem is they're just running amok. They're just absolutely out of control, right? So there you have it. It's hard for me to even exactly know how to deal with all this, because I really want to have God, family, country promoted. I really want to have life, liberty, and property protected. I really want criminals to go to jail, but it doesn't seem like we're hitting pay dirt right now. We're doing a lot of talking. We're throwing a lot of mud on the wall, hoping to see what sticks. But in the end of the day, I'm afraid the people that are above the law, the deep state characters, will absolutely walk unless we, the people, rise up and demand real accountability. I'm Sam Bushman. Thanks for listening. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Network. Download the iPhone or the Android app or listen online at lovingliberty.net. For the whole team, God save the Republic of the United States of America.